Awesome. Thank you, Dave, and Ken, Shayna, and Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Yeah. So I'll put that there. So I love our a cappella service and being able to sing together and look at each other, and there's so much joy there. During the a cappella service time, since we're in this setting, I've enjoyed doing these kind of more interactive messages where we can talk and study and engage and stuff like that. So we are going to have, Chaim's going to run around with a mic. And if you can, when you do have a comment, raise your hand for the mic and we'll just run it back and forth. Otherwise, our Zoomers can't hear it at all. So this year, our theme is the Etz Chaim Chi, the tree of life. And I've loved, Cheryl, you told me that a lot of the ladies have the tree of life necklaces around and are kind of comparing them. And actually, Joanna's leading a tree of life necklace making project after services today before the members meeting in the evening. And they're beautiful. They're like stunning. They're really wonderful. So this is the theme for the year, the tree of life. We're watering the roots of this tree by focusing on the foundations for healthy and joy-filled Messianic Jewish community. That's the whole focus this year. And so right now we've got two themes that are running. We've got Torah study. We've been doing that. And we have prayer. And we've been doing both of these two things. So a couple weeks ago I focused on prayer, and we overviewed the different pillars of the service, like a bird's eye view of the Jewish service, and that recording is on the website if you'd like to get back and take a look at that. Today what I want to do is dive into one particular prayer in the Siddur, so make sure you have your Siddur here, called Ahavah Rabbah. Ahavah Rabbah, a beautiful, beautiful prayer. So what we're going to do is turn to page 31 in your Siddur, and let's start just by reading this prayer, and then we'll get into its context a little bit and some really cool material that this prayer is all about. So, Ahavah Rabbah. We are in the middle of page 31 and 32. If you look over on the English side, it's deep is your love for us. That's where that starts. And in Hebrew, this is where we sing Ahavah Rabbah Haftanu. And if you're new or the prayer is new, this is where you get lost in the Hebrew. And we keep going, which is okay. Don't worry, that's fine. So let's do this. Let's read the English together for this prayer. It goes all the way to the bottom of the next page on page 34. And then we'll open up what some of the themes are for this prayer. So let's read this together. Deep is your love for us, O eternal our God. You have shown us overflowing compassion. Our Father, our King, for the sake of our ancestors who trusted in you and whom you taught laws of life, be gracious to us and teach us. Our Father, the merciful Father, who acts with mercy, be merciful to us. Instill in our hearts to understand and elucidate, to listen, learn, and teach, to safeguard, perform, and lovingly fulfill all the words of your Torah. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Bind our hearts to your commandments. Unify our hearts to love and revere your name. May we never feel inner shame. Because we have trusted in your great and awesome holy name, may we exult and rejoice in your salvation. Bring us in peacefulness from the four corners of the earth. And lead us with upright pride to our land, because you, O God, work salvation. You have chosen us from every people and tongue. You have drawn us to your great name to give thanks to you and proclaim your uniqueness lovingly. Blessed are you, Adonai, who lovingly chooses the people of Israel. So just scan over that prayer for a moment. And of course, next we move right into the Shema after that. And deep is your love all the way to lovingly chooses your people Israel. And look, what are some themes that you see arise out of this prayer? Just look over this prayer and just maybe this time just shout it out. If you see some themes in there that are of interest to you, shout those out.
The passion of God.
God's passion. Yeah, the passion of God. Right. God has passion here. Yeah, that's right. That our hearts would, understand. And understand God's ways. Understand God's Torah. That's a big part of the prayer. That's right. God's Torah. Anything else? Opening up our eyes to see what God is giving us. Right? Open up our eyes to see what God is giving us. Yeah? Yeah. There's one more really big theme in here that I'm looking for too. Yeah. Chosenness. Yes, that's another one. And there's one more. Safeguarding. That's a good one. I like that. Love. Yeah, love. Love as well. So all these things come together. Love, chosenness, looking up at what God has given us in this prayer. They all merge together. Now let's sync up on where this prayer happens in the service, because it's very important. The whole themes are not just randomly in space. We're in the middle of the Shema section. So take your Siddur, and if you go, just keep your finger there in the prayer there, and just flip back to page 26. Page 26 is here. Now if you could do this, put one finger on 26. You got another thumb in this prayer, and then flip it back over to page, there we are, 41 and 42. So we got 3 spots. Our prayer, the beginning, and then the ending. Is that, can you guys do that? Yeah. Okay, you need 2 hands to do this, or sticky notes or something. So this whole section is called the Shema section. So the Shema section of the service is not just Shema, Yisrael, Hashem. It's actually a whole section with prayers built around it. And you look up at the top, you'll see Shema and blessings above the header. That's the Shema section of the service. Now, turn to page 26, back of your first finger there. And we have the beginning blessing where we just talk about the Lord being blessed. And then we say, "Blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, former of light, creator of darkness, maker of peace, creator over all." What's the theme in this prayer? It's all creation. Creation themed. Now, if you skip over, all of those prayers are all about creation. Skip over back to where we are, Ahavah Rabbah. Look right above Ahavah Rabbah, and we see, "Blessed are you, creator who fashions the heavenly lights." That's also creation. That section is the creation blessings of the Shema. Now we move into our prayer. Deep is your love for us. You gave us the Torah, help us understand, and you chose us. That's all, according to our sages, that is all the revelation section of the Siddur. That God has given us revelation from heaven in the Torah as a unique people. Then, if we keep going past Ahavah Rabbah, right after that we have the Shema, where we sing, "Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad." We say Hashem sometimes when we're not praying. Adonai is the way we replace Yud He Vav He. And Hashem means his name. So as we move into the Shema, it's its own little part of the service. And then the next part of the service, if you just go back to the page 41, you'll see what we sang and danced to, Mika Mocha. And the whole idea of this is that God has delivered us. This is redemption. So we have creation, revelation, and then we have redemption. And where is the Shema in this, if you could follow along? I hope this isn't too confusing. Where is the Shema? Creation blessing, revelation, Ahavah Rabbah Tanu, and then we have Shema, kind of just right there, and then we have all of these redemption blessings. You can think of it like these blessings are like the gold setting of a diamond ring, and they set the Shema right here. The Shema isn't considered a prayer. It's a declaration of faith. The Shema is this where we say yes to what God has given us, yes to all of God's plan as a people, that he has chosen us to fulfill his destiny in the world, to fulfill his purposes in the world. And we say, yes, we're going to do that. And the Shema is part of our identity. It's like the only prayer in the Siddur that's really not a prayer. It's a declaration. Everything else around it is a prayer. It's so important. There's a beautiful story I just read in Anita Fila, a commentary of, I was going to read it today, but I didn't bring the actual book, but I'll just summarize. It was after the Holocaust, and there was an organization that went out to find lost Jewish kids whose parents were gone. And so they would go around to different orphanages. And so they went to one orphanage, and they said, "Are there any Jewish kids here?" And they said, "No, and if there were, we wouldn't know because they don't remember their past." and we have no record of it at all. So he says, let me in. They say, no, there's no reason. He says, let me in. So the guy comes in, and he sings the Shema. And all these kids start crying for their mommies and come up, and he says, these are mine. They're coming with me. Isn't that neat? So the Shema is so much a part of who we are as a people, and that we sing this, to our kids at night. We sing this with them, and it's beautiful. So this prayer, Ahavah Rabbah, is the gold setting that sets us up for this prayer, for this declaration of the Shema. So I think that's really neat. Okay, now let's go back to Ahavah Rabbah. We're now on, forgive me for all the flipping around. We're back on page 32. Okay, and let's get into this prayer a little bit. Now it's really interesting because you guys nailed the themes of this prayer. It's love. We have love, and then we have God's particular, he has chosen. It's very offensive. Blessed are you who has chosen his people Israel. I mean, it's an offensive concept in our world today. How do we go from creation? God is the universal creator. He's distant. He's far off. He made the heavenly lights, the sun and the moon, he has chosen his people, Israel. What connects? It's one word. What connects in the prayer us from creation all the way? Love. Yes, it's right here. It's right here in the prayer. Deep is your Ahavah. Deep is your love. So let's think about that. I want to flush that out. We go from this universal concept of God, this distant, big, kingly concept, all the way down to he chooses his people Israel, and love is the glue that makes that a reality, that makes that possible. So let's unpack that. Why might that be? What is the significance behind that? Any ideas? Raise your hand if you have an idea on how I can go. Maybe that's too abstract. What is the significance of love being the binding between this universal God and this kind of offensive particular choosing a people? Covenant? Yes. Okay. Covenant. Anyone else? Yeah, Margaret. Hi, run the mic around if you can.
Well, I think Yeshua, as the Son of God, is the one who brings everything together and binds everyone in love.
He binds everyone together in love. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, Wendy, go ahead. Take a stab.
Well, I've kind of had this idea, but it might be a little off base.
That's
But
okay.
I feel like, just when I've been going through the Devar, I feel like maybe God gave something up for us even before Yeshua. And the reason I feel that way is we kind of surprise him sometimes. We do things that he didn't really expect, which makes me think maybe he gave up a little of his control to let us be us.
Yes. Yeah, the whole idea of free will, he did. And that requires love. It's really interesting. There's some interesting concepts about, like, from Michael Visegrad and different authors who write about Jewish identity a lot, and the challenge of a universal God who loves everybody, and then a particular God who loves the people of Israel. And I think the idea is that a universal God who loves everyone, it's like, how can you love everyone? Love focuses down, and when God says, I'm going to choose a people, it's like it's this tension between universalism and particularity. And that tension is so important because I think we can't experience God's individual love without him being very particular and choosing a people that then we are a part of, that then connects us to the universal. Because through his chosenness of Israel, he blesses everyone. He blesses and loves all the nations of the world through the Messiah. That's the promise of Abraham.
Said at the end, Rabbi Nathan, that the chosenness and the love do seem like they are at odds, but when it's almost like love as, rather than like we think of love as like it's something that I like almost I choose to give to someone, or it's a feeling, but instead of this is like maybe love as the nature of God. So if God is love and the substance of God is love and the nature of God is love, there's like all that nature of love is going to have to do is set forth something in motion that will then full out and like bring about that love that he has for all of humanity. because what has to happen is there has to be this chosenness. There has to
Yes.
be this byway through which then that love will be manifest. And
Yes.
I don't know if he's sitting around saying, well, I'm really playing favorites. And because he comes down so hard on Israel, when Israel, like the Babylonian exile, like they don't get all, like, there's no pass. It's not a favoritism the way humans would be. It's more by virtue of the fact of the nature of love that cannot help but manifest that love in a way that it's going to have to happen.
I love that. It's like love requires a choice, doesn't it? Like Rain and I love each other, but that's because we chose each other. You know what I mean? If we didn't choose each other, it wouldn't be love. Love requires this particularity for it to manifest itself. So a universal creator God that doesn't have particularity in choosing a nation can't fully love in the way that is his being and his essence. It has to come out that way. I think that's what you're saying. That's great. That's great. And I think you picked up on that, Wendy, too. That's like something he had to give up in order to give this choice. And Diane, you said covenant. Let's go there next, because I think, love requires a particular relationship. It's relational. Love is always relational. It's not just an abstract concept. It's relational. And so in this prayer, we have love. Deep is your love. God is compassionate Father. We move then to Torah. He then gives us this Torah, this revelation. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Unify our hearts in your love through your Torah, and revere your name. And then we go into promises. There, Lord, keep your promises. Bring us back from the four corners of the earth. Deliver us. Give us your salvation. So what are those three things? We have love, revelation of the Torah, and then you keep your promises. What does that remind us of? It's actually, I'm saying the word, you said covenant. It's a covenant. It's like think of a marriage covenant when we're under the chuppah, and it's like you have love, and that brings you together. You've chosen someone, and then under the chuppah, you make these declarations to each other, and you take your, in Judaism you have to give a gift, and that's what the ring is, and the gift is a gift that seals those declarations. That's the Torah. The gift of the Torah is what seals those declarations. And then we go and we live out those promises. Diane? Yeah.
Everything we're talking about is kind of coming full circle, because in a contract, a covenant's a contract. So to bind a contract, you have to have consideration. That's what you give something in order for the contract to be binding. So God gives his love,
Yes.
in that whole sense of himself to bind that holy contract.
Right. Yeah. Isn't it cool that it's like relational? It's not just this, here, do this. God isn't just like, do this. It's rooted in deep is your love for us. It's rooted in this love covenantal relationship. And this is as we're going to see, this becomes very tangible. Yes. Stacy.
I was just thinking about the daily devar.
Yeah.
And the part when that follows what we read when Isaac's out meditating in the fields and he lifts up his eyes and then sees Rebecca, and Rebecca lifts up her eyes and she sees Isaac. And I looked at the little study notes in the Bible about the part when Isaac is out meditating in the field, and the notes that are connected with that have to do with, God the Creator and the marvels of his creation. But the psalm that was connected with that particular reading in the Daily Devar also had some other words besides the God of creation. It had, like, I'm lonely, I'm afflicted, I wait for you, Lord, let the King of glory come. And then all of a sudden, here's Rebecca, and it's kind of like the revelation or the fulfillment of that promise. And she was kind of like the salvation of Isaac, because he was pining away, his mother
Right.
Sarah had died.
Right.
So
From
it
his
just kind
grief.
of, that portion of Scripture seems to cover all those
That's so cool.
things.
Yeah. Isn't it neat, the Daily Devar? We're all in it together. We're all reading the same passages, and they link together, even though it's not always intentional, but they do. That's really, I love it. Love it, love it. So thank you, Stacy. That's really cool. So let's move forward. We're moving forward towards, we're kind of going bigger down to smaller and smaller. This interesting idea of relationship. So it isn't just like, in this passage, it isn't only me and God relating together in this passage. That's the interesting thing. It's not just me and God under the chuppah. It's God and Israel, and by extension through Israel, through the Messiah, we know it's the nations come alongside of that as well. Together, in this relationship with God, together, unify our hearts to love and revere your name. Does that unify your hearts? Can you think of a passage in the New Testament that talks about something like that? Unify them. What are you saying, Joyce? Yes, you can. Yeah, you had it. You should be one as the Father, as one. When Yeshua prays about the disciples all coming together to be unified, unify our hearts to your love and revere your name. So there's something about us coming together in his love, where we become, our relationships with each other become part of this relationship that we have as individuals with him. So it's really interesting because in our society today, post-enlightenment, all this me, I stuff, there's good things there. Don't get me wrong. There's good stuff that happened. But something changed. It's about me and my relationship with God. It's about me. Communities are now made up of individuals. So individual, I have a faith. My faith comes, and then I meet with other people to have faith to celebrate God together. Okay, that's good. But that's not the biblical concept of community. The biblical concept of community is different. The community comes as a faith and has an experience, and the individuals are informed by that community. Do you see the difference? So we have no individual identity apart from the community, which gives us that individual identity. This is abstract. God's love comes through the community and then into us as individuals. It's very profound. So that's why we come together, unify. How might this impact our spiritual walk with God? If we think of our spiritual walk with a tilt and an emphasis on community, unifying in community, and our spiritual life being informed by our community rather than our community being informed just by our spiritual life, how might that impact our spiritual walk? Yeah.
The connection to the community is going to be a lot deeper and a lot more solidified, because if I come in as an individual, if that changes my individuality and it's different from the community, well, then maybe I'm going to leave and go to another community. But if it is the community itself that comes first and I'm drawing from that, it just seems more solidified rather than the other way around. If the community changes, it just seems more fluid the other way. I'm coming in, I might change, I might leave, because now I have to go find another community that is compatible with what I am going to find in the community. Whereas the other way around, it really is a community itself that's like the entity, the organism of it, that it's more solidified, and it seems something more lasting to me, because it's the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah. You know Robinson Crusoe, like he's alone on an island by himself. He could fulfill this part of this. He could love God. You see, but he couldn't live out that love and that shared life that God has given us in the Torah on his own. He can't do it. And the Torah that God has given us is all relational. Most of these mitzvot that God gives us involve each other. And so we have to come together in order to live those things out, and that it shapes us and informs us. And it just makes community so much more important. And we find out, scientifically and with brains and all that stuff for another message, but what creates joy and what creates love is those interactions with each other. And it's very powerful. We're like made to be that way. Dave, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Robinson Crusoe. I think there's something about being just completely isolated. Humans are social animals. You're not really, we can do it. We could live by ourselves on an island,
right?
But it's not fully human. And it reminds me of something that I read or heard someone interviewed who wrote something who said, who was talking about Judaism. He was someone who decided to convert to Judaism. And one of the things he said was that he was talking about optionality and how, we can live, especially today, we can live on our own. We don't need people as much just to survive, like, in most of human history we have. But when you enter into a relationship, you add constraints, right? Like a marriage is, or a friendship, or a community. It's a way, you're saying yes to something in a way that you're saying no to a bunch of other things, right? And we don't like constraints, right? We want to do whatever we want to do, right? Like it's not
right.
There's a part of us who doesn't like that constraint, but there's a part of us who needs it, and that he said this guy was making the point that he felt that the most meaningful things in our lives, the things that are the most important, are those things, those constraints we put on, those things that we say, those things that take away optionality, that take away freedom, like a marriage, an army service, a community, your family that you're born into. You can't just change those things or walk away from them. And as a result, those are the things that actually change us the most and make us who we are.
Yes, thank you, Dave. It's so profound. It's the limits in our life that cultivate joy and happiness when we live within them. Yes.
I might have this wrong, but didn't Yeshua say that, there are all these rules and all these constraints, but love God is number one and love your brothers yourself.
Right.
So how do you love your brother unless you're in
How do you love
community?
your brothers yourself if you're not in community? Yeah.
I was also thinking about time. That passage in with Abraham when he was promised the descendants will be like the stars. I was thinking, whoa, that's us.
That's us.
We're connected to that, and then the descendants of the future. It's like little chicks. They kind of start scattering if you don't kind of keep them all in. And we were like the fulfillment of that promise.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's why you see a little kid he's running around. Isn't that just terrific? I mean, just love them, because they're the little chicks, That's funny. My kids won't like me calling them chicks, but, well, we won't tell them that.
We think of ourselves as independent, and we can live without community, and we can do it a lot better than we could 100 years ago.
It's true.
Let me assure you, we just went through COVID. What happened? We got isolated.
Yeah.
Alcoholism went up 30%.
Yeah.
Drug addiction went up 2%. And we don't do very well without each other.
There's a lot. I've talked to some different counselors who were like, you can't even get appointments because there's so much going on because of all the isolation and stuff that happened. Yeah, it's just the silent problem. Over here, Stacy. Yep, and then.
I was just thinking right back to the very creation story when God made Adam. One of the very first things he said is, it's not good for the man to be alone.
Oh, that's a good point.
So
I haven't
even
thought of that.
in
That's a really
creation,
great-
he infused it with his love.
Yeah, that's great. Cool, good comments here. Let's see, I want to move on to one more point, but any other, Margaret, go ahead, yeah. And then
So I think community is great because we all have common problems and we all have different ideas on how to solve those common problems.
Yes.
And when we come together and we share different ideas, I think problems get solved just so much faster than trying to figure it out all on your own.
Yes.
And just the fact that we talk about it makes us feel a little better too.
Yeah, just having people to hear things. See, we're just meant to be this way. It's so good. So, okay, let's go back now. I want to close with this one more kind of idea to draw out of this prayer that we can walk away from. Ahavah Rabbah Avotanu. Ahavah Rabbah Avotanu. So Ahavah is, we know this, love. Ahavah is love. Okay, this word Rabbah, what does this word Rabbah mean? It's kind of an interesting word. Yes, this is what it means, right? Big, grand, great. We translate it in this word deep. It can also mean some other things. It can actually mean to grow and increase. And get this, Cheryl, you'll like this. It could mean to saturate with liquid and to be thick and pulpy. Think oatmeal, you know what I mean? Or like cake batter, Like, what I'm thinking of you with your, cake batter, and that's like, or like challah dough, it's like challah dough, you can stretch it like that. So, okay, and then Havtanu is you have loved us again. So we could translate, if we put all this together, a loose translation, I have loved you with a love that is so great, it doesn't have any bounds. It keeps growing even more. It's a love that's thick and pulpy, like challah dough. A love that's thick and pulpy. It's not only a feeling. Love isn't only a feeling. Love is a commitment. It's a will and action. But if it's thick like challah dough, it also is a feeling. It's something we can tangibly experience in our bodies. And I want to talk about, it's not something we talk about that often. How do you feel God's love in your body? You know what I mean? But think about it. You can feel his love in your body. We're not just, heads walking around on sticks, like with minds, you know what I mean, in clouds. We're like connected to our bodies. So, I don't know, how do you guys feel love? Let's start with people. How do you feel love with people in your life? We feel that in our bodies. if you think about it, I'd like to hear, how do you feel love in your bodies? When you see someone that you are emotionally connected to, you are happy to see them. They're happy to see you too. What happens? Hugs in your bodies, right? What is that? Something tenses in your stomach. Your muscles get up. Your arms go out. Your eyes light up. You go like this, and it involves your body. You know, so even when people say, I don't know how to feel God's love, it's maybe not that important. Okay, but it is here. It is a relationship with him. And so it's a part of our bodies. How do you guys feel? How do you feel love? Like, think of a moment in your life when you felt that kind of love. Where do you feel it in your body? Nick?
We say God is happy to see us. And what does that do? He's smiling at us, and what happens? We smile back.
Smile back. Yeah, a smile. Good. A smile is a way. What about like those of you who have had experience with kids, and you see the child? Oh, go ahead, Cheryl, and then I'll go there.
It almost has a medicinal effect.
Yes.
Sometimes your heart will beat a little faster. Your physiological response. Heart will beat faster. Breathing might be different. And then you might actually, like, you can be in a place where you can be sad or down or whatever it is, and you'll have like almost a chemical difference, because it'll affect your brain, your endorphin, like
Yes.
whatever's happening
Right.
in the brain and things like that you'll have like a qualitative difference within your body, that you can actually have mood change, and
Yes.
it can make you from maybe being a little dragging to being energetic and having
Right.
hope. So it can literally change.
Right, and
your
emotions
entire-
are part of our
Yeah.
bodies as well. They're not just separated out. It's part of us. What about when you're looking at a child? I mean, if you have kids, you'll know this, or if you've just connected with kids, and they're sleeping, and you've cared for them, and you've invested in them, and you love them. What is that feeling that you feel inside? You guys know that feeling. It's hard to describe, but I feel it in my stomach, sort of, you know. How do you feel it when you feel God's love? Have some of you guys felt God's love in your bodies? Where do you feel it? Fred, and then Ken? Yeah.
Just God's love it can be like a healing love. It's there's something about it that you can be actually physically ill, but when God's love enters you, when you connect with that, you become well.
Yes, that's right.
You know, the misery goes and God's
Yes, everything can
love-
lift. It's
love enters
an
in.
inner lift inside even. Can be very subtle. Yeah, Ken?
Yeah, to me, it's really simple. I don't think there's a mistake that the heart is associated with love. I feel it in my heart.
You feel it right here in your
Right,
chest.
right,
Yeah.
chest and heart.
Yeah. Diane? You experience God's love in feathers.
Wow, this is a big, good topic. No, I mean, these are some extreme loves. So when I understood that Yeshua is the Messiah, it was electrifying love. Like, that was intense, electrical impulse experience, physiological, and goosebumps. You know, sometimes that might be Holy Spirit or whatever, but you know, you just feel it. You know, you can just feel it. So those are,
Goosebumps, shivers, sometimes
Yeah.
electricity. I think
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit comes in electricity. You can be blown over. I'll tell you the stories later on about that. Margaret, and then I saw a hand over here. Yeah.
When I first accepted Yeshua as Messiah, for me, it was a confirmation of instruction. So he told me to do something, and then to go to a certain place, that something was going on. And
Yes.
then when I got there, it was true.
Yeah,
So
it was true. Yeah, sometimes when the Lord speaks, you can even feel it in your stomach, or like an electrical jab inside sometimes, or sometimes there's heat in your hands, a trembling. You've seen, especially if you're praying for healing, and there's healing, you know, something's going on that might start to move. So like he works in our body. There was one over here. Connie and Stacy and Connie. Yeah.
Okay. I was piggybacking on Nick's comment earlier about the smile, and also yours about the children. What did we just read about in that Shema section about the part where we say, may the Lord make his face to shine upon you? When we have all those kids underneath that chuppah and all the tall guys are holding it.
Yes.
You know, they're smiling up at
Yes.
us and we're smiling back at them, and God's face is shining on all of us.
Yes, God's face is smiling on us. He's happy to see us. It's the same thing as we're happy to see someone else or someone we love. He's there for us. It's palpable. Connie, and then I've got one thing to close with
You were
us.
asking, where we would feel the love. You can feel it in your eyes as well. You can get misty, teary-eyed. It can have
you
that
can-
effect as well.
Exactly, teary-eyed, moving your emotions. And Steve?
I know maybe it's God speaks in the way that we feel it or hear it. Because when I came to Yeshua, it was actually a mind thing. It was a clearing of my mind. It was a clearing of anxiety in my head. It was peace inside my head.
Yes, that's great. Well, I would say peace is a body experience. Peace. We're not that separated. And post-enlightenment, it's reason is everything. But we're not like that. There's all this left brain, right brain, new stuff coming out that when you walk in the house and you smell chicken soup and it brings back memories and you feel something inside, that's our bodies that are a part of this. And that's God's love works the same way. It's so interesting. Yeah. And what if it transforms our mind? It changes the neural pathways in our bodies. And it gets rid of depression, and it brings joy, and it modulates and pulls all the emotions together. And I think it's very important as a community that we learn how to feel God's love together. In the service, we learn how to feel his joy together. We got to do it. We have to add it. And it's not just an individual thing, it's a community thing, It's so cool to think about. I have one activity to do. It'll take just 2 minutes, and hopefully this will connect something meaningful to you with this prayer, so that the next time we pray Ahavah Rabbah, it will have a deeper meaning to it. Go back in your mind. You close your eyes if you'd like. If not, that's okay too. And just try to remember a time when you felt love in a significant way. It could be a time from the Lord. It could be a time with a person, with a child, with an animal, in nature. Just a time when you felt love. And ask yourself, where do you feel this in your body? And as you enter into this memory, see if you can feel it in your body right now. Breathe it in, the love. Breathe the love in. Now give this memory a name. Place where it was, or a person it was with, or something like that. Give it just a name. And now ask the Lord, what might you be showing me through this love? Now let that memory just sit inside of you and intentionally think, this is going to become a core memory in my soul. And this is a place you can always come back to. And every time we open up our Siddur and we go through the Shema from creation to revelation to redemption, and we declare him and we sing Ahavah Rabbah Tanu. Let that love of the Lord come into our bodies and into our community, into our prayer and praise, and accept and love him together. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for a great study. And if I can invite Shana to come up, and let's close our service.
Thanks, Rabbi Nathan. That was wonderful.